And we're back with our politics lead and a very clear message from Democratic voters in a brand new CNN poll. Bring on Biden. The poll shows 62% of Democratic voters want the former vice president to enter the 2020 race, compared to the 28% who say he should not run. Biden, we're told, will announce his decision any day now. Let's just dive right in. Now, we should point that 62% want him to run. That's not 62% saying they'll vote for him.
Yeah.
But still, that's an impressive number. And yet, you know, we're still a long way away.
We are such a long way away. And that is, again, what the campaign is all about, is to see how people do with voters, how they handle the issues. I mean, look, I think there are a couple of things. You know, anybody who runs has got to have more than just they can beat Donald Trump, because there is a possibility that Donald Trump, I know we think it's not likely, but there's a possibility. What if he's impeached? What if he steps down? What if he's not the person that you're running against? You've got to have more than just I can beat Donald Trump as your answer. And I think that's part of the problem for some of these candidates who may be trying to build their narrative solely around that idea. And also because I don't think that's going to work in every community in this country. People say, that's great, you can beat him, but then what are you going to do for me? What are you going to do for our community?
What did the White House officials say in terms of who they fear the most? You two, as White House reporters, do they fear Biden? Chris Christie was here not long ago. Well, let me roll the tape. I asked Chris Christie, the former New Jersey governor and close ally of President Trump, who he thought posed the biggest threat to Trump. Take a listen.
Vice President Biden, because he's going to be able to potentially appeal to the white working class voters in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, that determined this race in 2016.
Do you hear that at the White House?
Yeah, definitely. You hear that is a major line of thinking from a lot of people around the president about some of the demographic mechanics of Trump's win. But I think if you talk to people really about Trump, it's not just demographics. It's not just white working class people. I think there's a sense that this person needs to be charismatic enough to compete with Trump, who is a major entertainer out on the campaign trail. And in some ways, Joe Biden actually does kind of have that draw. He has an ability in some ways to connect, although his previous runs were not successful. He has been known to be a more charismatic person. And I think the idea that Biden has been in the past discounted or disqualified because of his gaffes, Donald Trump sort of makes the path a little easier for him. I mean, Trump is not exactly the most gaffe-prone candidate we've ever had, and so it makes it easier for someone like Biden to go on out there and run.
No question. I think they are worried about that part of the country. But President Trump also watches stagecraft. He watches crowds, electricity. And he said several times now, both privately and publicly, he's watching Kamala Harris. I think largely because he saw her announcement rally, a week and a half or so. He saw the town hall that you did with her, Jake, and he watched all of that. So the reality here is, I think that he is not, he knows how to run against a Joe Biden, an older white man. I do not know that he would know how to run necessarily against a younger black woman. And that is something that people around the president aren't quite as convinced that Biden would be the hardest candidate.
And I'm not sure that they figured out, just quickly, how to brand Kamala Harris. He's branded a lot of the other people in the race. Yeah. He hasn't really touched her in that way. He hasn't given her a nickname. Yeah.
But so have we, so it's okay.
You know, outside of the geographic argument for Biden, the kinds of states he might appeal to, it strikes me that one of the greatest dangers to the Democrats as they take on Trump is going too far to the left on cultural issues, on some of these fringe matters. You know, the abortion issue flared up this week. That's an example. Identity politics. I think some of their younger candidates might be prone to falling into that trap. The one person who might not feel like they have to go out to the fringes to please everybody is somebody who's well-known, somebody who's held a big office. So where I worry about Biden is he might be able to resist getting pulled too far to the left and too far into issues that would make anyone else unelectable.
And Karen, I want to ask you about that, because actually Biden does face a problem. If Kamala Harris, Senator Kamala Harris, people are skeptics of hers on the left, are saying you were too aggressive as a district attorney in San Francisco, you were too aggressive as the attorney general in California. Well, take a look at Joe Biden talking in 1989, his response to George H.W. Bush's drug strategy.
In a nutshell, the president's plan doesn't include enough police officers to catch the violent thugs, not enough prosecutors to convict them, not enough judges to sentence them, and not enough prison cells to put them away for a long time.
Now, last month, the vice president said that he had maybe gone too far and apologized for his role in some of those tough on crime measures from the 90s. But that's going to be tough for a lot of progressive voters to take.
Well, and as you recall, in the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton, who didn't even have a vote in the crime bill, it was an issue that we had to deal with throughout the election into the general election. So Joe Biden, who was a champion of that legislation,
It was his legislation.
absolutely will have to deal with it. Here's the other challenge I think that Joe Biden would have. You know, I love Barack Obama. I miss him. That's not the same thing as there are some unresolved issues that people have on the left, actually, with some parts like not going after the big banks under the Obama administration, so the Obama legacy. Joe Biden will have to answer for that. So his ability to, even when he's trying to appeal to some of these voters that we're talking about, he's still going to have to be accountable for the Obama record and then try to say, and here's what I would do differently in a way that will feel credible to people.
And talk about racial issues. Do you remember when then Senator Biden was talking about then Senator Obama and praising him and the way that he praised him? Take a listen.
I mean, you got the first sort of mainstream African American who was articulate and bright and clean and nice looking guy. I mean, that's a storybook, man.
Then he went on to be Barack Obama's vice president.
Well, obviously he was forgiven, but I mean, clean.
He was picked for a reason, though. He was picked
yes.
because the Senator Obama then needed an elder statesman. So that's why we can never make any predictions now about who will be someone's vice president or who won't be, because the reality is they weren't close then, but then they grew close. But I think the question for Vice President Biden is his first day going to be his best day? Frontrunners seldom hold that position. So there's good and bad in those numbers. It might encourage him to get in the race, but I'm not sure it tells us any more than that.
President Jeb Bush would agree with you. Would agree with you, Jeff.